Plenty of crap to scoop out. Yeah, so after a big clean like this, the tank will tend to look a lot better, but it's important to follow up big cleans with more regular cleans, because it really isn't the case where you can just clean a tank out like this, especially if it hasn't been cleaned thoroughly for a while, and then just think everything's going to be okay. It really is a matter of giving it a good clean, then just following it up with another good clean, and you got to do a bit of catch up until you get it back under control, and then monthly servicing would normally be enough for a tank like this. Maybe a little bit of a weekly glass clean and a good monthly filter service and a good monthly water change with a gravel clean, especially with our new super duper Majestic Aquarium's turbo mega tank gravel cleaner. So when you're designing a tank, you really want to think about usability for servicing. Now this one here has got a nice little ledge there, which is a nice place to put the bucket on, which helps to service when you're in the tank. But the real big thing that would make the difference is if it was possible to have big panels here that allow you to get in. With this particular aquarium, there's not really access to the top from the front. Your access is basically up through there. So that just makes everything a little bit harder to do. So just when you're designing a tank, just think about how you're going to clean it. And things like that area there is sort of good to get the perception of depth. And it's a nice little place to put a cleaning bucket. Yeah, not a bad view. Sydney Shore is beautiful. So with these jobs, you go and do what you know you need to do. But when you're disturbing the gravel and cleaning all the algae off the rocks and cleaning the glass, visibility quickly turns to zero. So you can clean these tanks with all the best intention, but that's all fun and games until you can't see what the hell you're doing. Because when visibility is zero, you're just cleaning with hopes and dreams. And that's just another reason why when you do a job like this, you really want to come back and do a follow-up sooner than later, because all this debris that you're disturbing is going to clog up your filters, which means your filters need re-cleaning, and a lot of this stuff is going to die off and just create nutrient, and then that nutrient's just going to grow more algae. So as you perform this sort of task and you give it a clean up and you get a lot of the crap out, then you follow that up with another clean up and get the crap out and keep the filters nice and clean. Then as you're exporting these nutrients out of the water, that's when the algae actually gets better. On the first one or the first couple of times, it is just like a temporary solution, because you're getting so much crap out of the system that all of that crap is going to cause the growth of actually more algae, and the algae will grow back very quickly. Whereas once you've done this a few times and you've got a lot of that physical crap actually out of the water, then you'll find that the tank starts staying clean much longer. So a terrestrial plant like this is not really going to get eaten by the fish. Aquatic plants are much more soft, and the fish will really destroy them a lot more. And these sorts of plants, if you put it in there for decoration, it's sort of okay, but if you leave it in there and it starts rotting, then it releases phosphate and other crap into the water that's just going to end up causing more algae to grow. So putting fake plants in, I think, is going to get a far better long-term result than potentially rotting terrestrial plant. It sure is amazing how much crap you can scoop out of a fish tank with a fish net. So because we've disturbed this tank quite a lot, we're going to put some polyfilter in the water, and that's going to help to remove accumulants and reduce the risk of potential hydrogen sulfide poisoning, which is always a risk when you're doing big overhauls like this. So here's some products I can recommend for a job like this. Now, fish keeping is 50% about water quality and 50% about nutrients. So good quality, low processed foods like Danichi make a massive impact on the fish's immune system, particularly if used with foods like probiotics from New Life Spectrum. Now, the other thing we might want to consider, there are various good bacteria products, there are good bacteria supplements. Now, this tank, I would like to increase the general hardness, so that's going to be a very good idea. There are various KH buffing products that I would definitely want to use to control our KH or potentially add some coral bone. I would want to make sure that we're using a water ager every time to make sure that we don't get chlorine in the water. And something like a water cleanser is a very good idea. That'll produce hydrocarbons, which will allow the growth of OEMs, oil-eating microorganisms. That'll come and help to scrub and polish up the environment, help it to keep clean. So we've got a couple of big bag filters here that get cleaned every couple of weeks. Now that we've done this big change, you'd want to do it every day until it goes back to normal. We've got some filter sponge here that gets cleaned every couple of weeks, and underneath here we have some poly filter which will get chucked out when it turns black. There's a couple of strainers there that need replacing, need cleaning on a very regular basis. Now this here is going to be, it's the hydrocarbon source, so it's going to help grow microorganisms and help to keep it clean. Just throw that in there, and then after about 6 months think about replacing it. That'll help with the debris and the amount of crap that's in the water to reduce algae. Now this is going to raise our KH a little bit. So if we just go and chuck that in here, away we go. And then we'll let that settle down. And now we've just got some GH salts. Now the increased GH is going to help with the fish's immune system, help with their body slime, and all that sort of business. Now the next thing we need to add is the water ager. Now every single time that we add new water, it's a good idea to add some water ager. Now this stuff is surprisingly strong, which means you only need to add a very small amount to detoxify the chlorine. Now this is something a bit cool. This is a freshwater foam fractionator or protein skimmer. So with this device here, this is a foam fractionator or protein skimmer. Now this needs to get opened, and at the moment it's jammed. So just getting like a big tool and turning it, open that up. Then inside here you'll see a cylinder, and what you need to do to make this function is get a toilet brush and clean the inside of the cylinder, because what will happen is fatty acids will form, and then as the absorbate, which should get taken out, build up, the bacteria in the fatty film will break it and make it go back in again. So as this is, it's pretty much just a big oxygen reactor, which is better than nothing, but it's definitely not what it's meant to be. If that lid could get opened and you can clean the inside of that a couple of times a week, that would allow an amount of foam refractionation which will improve your water quality. But it needs to be cleaned regularly, because the bacteria and the bio-slime and the fatty acids break the absorbate back into the water, because what should be happening is the bubbles in here should be bonding the organics and taking them out instead of going back down. So to clean the protein skimmer, all you're really needing to clean is the inside of this. Whatever's outside doesn't even matter, because it's the inside that matters. So when you clean it, you'll find that it'll froth over. If you haven't cleaned it for a while, it won't really froth over as much. But the way this is set and the way this is functioning, it actually looks like it's going to be pretty good. If you are using any sorts of carbon base or any pre-filters, it's really important that they're cleaned regularly, because over time they get old and then they're not going to do anything. And in this case, we're using this to just polish the tap water, which is better than nothing, but it is not completely secure. So you don't want to have old carbon, otherwise it's not going to do much. And you'll end up with chlorine in your tank, which is not ideal. Now, if you're worried about checking your salt level for a freshwater tank, a lot of people use GH salts, which help your salt level and your general hardeners and minerals and so forth. So they'll use that as an indicator. So you can use your GH as an indicator of your salinity, though it isn't completely accurate. So we've just serviced this tank, and it's very common that we service a tank and after we leave the tank it looks completely terrible because we've just disturbed everything. So it's like we temporarily have cleaned the tank and made it look worse. Actually, they look way better up the top there too, because they look a little bit more terrestrial than coming from the bottom like it was growing.
Everyone said, "Oh, don't get in, you stress the fish." Oh, I'm like, I'm getting in.
You have to watch what you put in your hair the night before, right?
And we're
No mascara.
mascara.
Yeah, no mascara. No sunscreen.
It's such a